So welcome back. This will be part 3 of the OZeRES V-tailed electric build. So we're now getting to installation and covering and finishing. So the first thing I need to look at is actually doing the spoiler. And the first thing you're going to need is this piece of wood here, and you'll notice that one says spoiler hook and spoiler hook 2. So the spoiler hook 2s go on the actual spoiler, and important to note that these, I've just dropped these in, they're not glued at the moment, but that's where the spoiler hooks go, and they face outwards. So there's a nice little notch in there, and I didn't have to ease mine at all, just cut it out, I've dropped it in. So I'm just going to wick some cyno in there and also I'm just going to wick some cyno just around the actual hook as well, just to give it a little bit of extra strength. Now, having done that, what I'm then going to do is I'm then going to pop the hooks on here in the correct orientation, which I will show you, and then I'm going to do a little bit of mocking up. So what I intend to use is I've got myself a small servo here, which is I got this from Angel Wing Designs. It's a King's Mac. It's a KM303A. It weighs in at 3 grams, and it says the stool is 0.52 kilograms. It might be a little under spec, but I'm going to try that first. I'm actually only going to glue this in, so if it's not man enough for the job, I can always step up. So I've just got my servo arm on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the other hooks, then I'm just going to pop a little bit of masking tape across the top here to act as a hinge, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my gear out, get it installed. I think I can actually clamp the servo from underneath and just have a little experiment just to see how it operates, if it's binding anywhere, because obviously once it's all set, we're set. So that's the next process. So just a quickie, just to make sure you're certain about the orientation. There's the OZeRES. That's with the hooks on. You just see the orientation. So the idea is that you want the, if you've got looking down at the trailing edge, let me show you. Okay, so what we've done is, if you've got the trailing edge here, leading edge away from you, so the idea is that you want to be reading the OZeRES like so, and that drops in there just like that. So when they flip up like so, you've got this hook facing away. Okay, let me just show you a very quick nick chitty fix. Like I say, I never claim to be an expert at any of this. So I want to have a go with the servo in place. So you know the outside bit of wood that supports that, I found that I just chamfered an edge of that, and that fits on there like so, and that goes all the way to the front like that. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my servo in place, then another piece of wood, I'm just going to slide this up like so, and there you go. I've got a perfectly good clamp which is holding the servo in position. Now we're going to do is I'm just going to tape the spoiler in place just to see if we actually get a nice movement. So I've just added a little bit of masking tape across the top. I've got it set on my throttle. This is literally, you're going to see the first go. So there you go. And it's just, don't forget I haven't got the elastic on it at the moment, but I'm quite pleased with that. Right, next update. I have done all my sanding, and for this particular version I have done mine in the classic Angel Wing Designs feather cover gloss, and I've also done, there is a separate video I've done on covering these, but I thought particularly for the OZeRES, this won't be people's first build, but I have done a second a second video on just a covering, but I thought, well, we want to crack on with the electronics. So the next thing I'm going to do is that, as I've already pre-installed or had a pre-go at loading everything up, my next plan of action is going to be installing the air brake, popping the servo in, hooking up the elastic bands, and I'll just talk you through that process then. The next thing is I've got a little bag of electronics turned up. Kept that invoice away from the wife. Okay, let me just talk you through what we've just done. I have just wrapped some of this hinge sellotape that I've got. It's actually greenhouse tape, and it's absolutely superb, very robust, and obviously it's designed to withstand UV. If I can remember it, I'll try and put a link at the end of this. So I've hot glued my little servo in. One little tip: make sure when you're doing this that you've got your servo wire is outside, because it's very easy to get that servo connector resting on a rib and you might damage it. So now the other thing you'll notice is I use lots and lots of these surgical blades. What I've done is I have just folded them into a right angle like so, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that on there, and then we are going to sit the spoiler in place, so that makes sure that I've got this gap here for the spoiler. So I've added the tape to my spoiler. Remember, get the orientation right, so these hooks have to be the furthest bit away. So now then, I have, as you can imagine, this is going to be a one and one only go, so I've got that in there like so. I've got that in there like so, a little bit of gap between the two, and then gently allow that to go boom. And then what I think we will do, let me just check. There we go, just checking I've got equal distance just here. And then we are going to pop that on there like so. Now, then I am just going to rub that on there like so. So I always think if you get the tape warm, it's always going to bind better. I don't know where, so rubber bands. So according to the instructions, we need to tie a loop in the first third, leaving a 2/3. So I'm guessing this must be some sort of, you know, Australian Aboriginal knot that we'll I won't get right, or whether I should be bending this round a witchetty grub, I'm not quite sure. But I think what we'll do is I'm going to try that first in the air brake spoiler, two of those about the same distance, before I start cutting them off, because if they're not quite right we can always adjust them. So let's see how we get on. Spoiler update, my fault, the servo was slightly out of trim. Anyway, let's crack on. Okay, let me talk you through what we're going to basically chuck in the fuselage. So the first thing we went for was this motor, and I got that from Flying Tech, and I will post all these links later. So that was from Flying Tech. It's a DYS BE1806. It's a 2300 kVS brushless motor. It will take 2 or 3 cells, £13.80. I got myself an ESC from Hyperflight. It's a Quantum BL Heli. It's a 20 amp ESC with a 3 amp S-Spec on it. That was £25.60. I got 2 servos from the component shop. They are KM303As. They are metal geared and they weigh in at 4 grams. I got 2 batteries, and I got these from Hobby RC. These are 550 amp 11.1 volt 3 cell. These worked out at £11 each, but by the time you chucked in the post and the tax and the VAT and everything else, they ended up being £11 each. So that little lot comes to £53.40. One thing I have to mention, I was very kindly given the prop, the nose cone and the hub. So I think all in, if I was to buy that, doing a little bit of research, I've spent £60 to equip this electric res glider. Update. I have added my XT30 connectors to my speed controller. So we should be all ready to go. So as always, throttle, transmitter on first, throttle is off. I have got a little peg here. This is just to hold all my wires out the way. I am going to add my XT30. There we go, it's made a bleep. And then I'm going to, oh, thank you. Right, so I think that means we're all ready to go. So, wow, I think that's going to be plenty enough. I think my blades are a little bit stiff in the hub, but I think we'll wait and see until we get flying with that. So I think the next thing we need to do is we need to talk about, I've got my servo tray done with the servos in, but we're not utilising that at the moment. Air brake is done. Really now, the nitty gritty, the very last bit is we're going to be adding the boom with the V-tail, and what I intend to do is add the boom, get that all ready, and then we can start setting that up. It's getting close. Okay, so the next little update is I put my V-tail on, and then I ain't got the room in my cabin because the glider's so big. I popped the wings on and managed to get on my kitchen dining table, just measured out, making sure we got 10mm in the front there, held it all in place. Now, one tip I did find to get it fairly accurate, if you very gently, I actually dropped mine on the bench upside down with the wings on, and that gave me a very close approximation, and then just measured the height down from each tip, dead square, and just very quickly just nipped it. It was a little bit of sino, and then put my odorless sino all round the rest of the joint. Now, so that's done and is firm fixed. The only last thing we have to do now are the push rods. And looking at the instructions, we're going to take a little bit away here, and I'm going to remove as little as possible as I can. But when we're doing that, what we want to try and do is make sure that it's not just a round hole. You want a sort of tapered hole like so, because then it means that the cable run is not under any stress. So you want to try and get that hole as flat as possible, the angle cut as flat as possible, so it's like that, not sharp edges. So just make it easier, because if you've got a bit of a ridge and the cable's doing that, and now you'll get a bit of stiction on it. Just bending up these push rods. So this bend here is 6mm, and then you need to come in 20 long, like so, and then cut that off. Now, little tip here, whenever you're cutting, put your hand over both sides, because I can guarantee if you don't, that's going to fire off and you'll never find it again. So that's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for. This is 6mm. This bit is 20mm. So just remember, we are only doing one end at the moment. So I've got my little bit of heat shrink here, which I am just going to pop on like so. And the idea is that one of these pops into there like so, and that basically gets heat shrink. So what I am going to do is I'm going to use my foam safe super glue, and I am just going to add a little bit to that end of the tube. I've never done this with foam safe super glue, so this has got 2 chances. So I am sliding this on like so, and then that's going in there like so, and I am just going to give this foam safe glue, just going to put the top back on there, and I've got my heat gun. Okay, so the very final thing was the push rods at the front. I cannot emphasize enough, don't go anywhere near the sort of thin super glue. It literally will spoil your day. Now, what did I do? So I have clamped the V-tail. I did exactly as before. I set my servos up. Now the actual outers, just make sure that you've got enough room for the rods to be able to push backwards and forwards. Don't forget they go through the little holes in the former, and I very much took my time with that, but I did exactly the same thing. Instead of an L shape, I bent up a Z bend and I put that in place. Little tip, just get your wire that you're going to use and just thread that through first, just to make sure that it does actually fit through. And then I very carefully held them in position, centered, made sure my servos were centered. When everything was I was happy with, I then literally just slid a steel ruler underneath mine with them held in position and just fixed mine with a hot air gun. You could do it with a soldering iron. Now, as it stands at the moment, I have not fixed the outer cables. I'm going to make sure everything is running first, and then when I do, I am going to use an odorless, slow curing cyano to do that with, because you do not want to be using a thin cyano, because it will just wick everywhere and will be a nightmare. So that is it. I've just got these cables to do. And then when I'm happy with that, I'm just going to fix the servo tray, because at the moment the servo tray still is just floating about at the moment. Well, welcome back. OZeRES is finished. Fully assembled. I wouldn't have been able to do this in the cabin. So there she is. She's running at 450 grams. I've already talked about the installation and I've given the links in the description. Let me just show you the setup of the V-tail and how we use this device. So I would suggest on your initial setup, just be careful. Remember, when you've got your motor connected, always make sure that your throttle's closed and you switch the transmitter on before you switch the receiver on. For the initial setup, I actually took the prop off just in case I accidentally hit it. Let me show you how I've set the tail up. So the idea with the tail is that I have this set up on my particular transmitter. I'm using this Futaba T10J. I've got it set up on Elevon. The reason being is I understand that there's another setting on there, but that uses different channels, and it's really to work with if you're using ailerons as well. So the idea with the guide, and they recommend plus or minus 15 millimeters for the rudder and 15 millimeters for the elevator. So it's dead simple. All you do is you just slide the gauge onto here like so, and then you can there you go. So the idea is that the gauge goes on here like so, and then you can just hold it down, and then you've got your degrees here of movement. That pops on there like so, and then you can just read off. Be warned that on a V-tail, the elevator is a lot more sensitive than a standard tail. I've actually done exactly as they've asked in the instructions, but I have another setup which is on my dual rates at the moment, which is slightly less, just in case it's too powerful. So, one last thing I want to show you. There she is, OZeRES. I've got to be honest, I've got some stickers to put on as well. But one last little twist, which I thought was quite nice. So I'm very pleased with how the kit went together. The wing was absolutely superb, you know, with the frame dropped in for all the ribs. Absolutely superb. Follow my instructions on the installation, and hopefully that will save you a bit of grief. I have managed to get the electronics as listed for £60. Very pleased with it. I'd like to thank Marcus Stent for all his help. There's a couple of questions I needed to ask him, and I did feel like I was pestering him a little bit, but this was one of the prototype Slim Fuzzies, so I just wanted to get it right, so thank you, Marcus. I'd also like to personally thank Andy Whitehead from Angel Wings Designs, because Andy, with his northern skills of finding stuff that was cheaper, has saved me a lot of money. So again, thanks very much, Andy. Thanks to everybody at Performance Models in Australia, and the next time you see me, fingers crossed, we're going to get some weather and we'll be out to test fly this little beauty.